Welcome back to Literature Guide. Wish you all a very happy and prosperous new year. It is a gift on the very first day from Literature Guide to all my viewers. Today's video is about historical novel. A historical novel came into being in the last decade of the 18th century. Maria Edgeworth's Castle Rackrent can be considered as the first fully developed historical novel. Later on, Sir Walter Scott handled this form with great skill. His Waverley novel is very famous. Historical novel describes a major historical event and its impact on the characters. The reader can find many historical figures along with some fictional characters. I have already produced many videos on the English novel, the Gothic novel, campus novel, thesis novel, Bildungsroman, serial novel. I hope you have watched all those videos. This video contains all the important examples of historical novel. I think you will definitely like this video. Without wasting your time, let's dive into the video and enjoy the video.
Historical novel. During the last quarter of the 18th century, a new form of fiction appeared on the literary scene. It is known as historical novel. Actually, the historical fiction sprang out of Gothic fiction. Although history has already been employed in fiction before, the historical novel emerged in the late 18th century. The story of the novel is woven in historical framework with the mixture of real historical figures and fictional characters. The historical novel may depict a single major event in the past and the characters get involved in the event. The historical novel depicts the conflict between two cultures. The fictional characters are introduced into this cultural conflict. They participate in actual events and move among actual historical figures. The historical novel deals with the life and customs of the period, and the novel describes the impact of that historical event on the life of people. Although Sir Walter Scott and James Fenimore Cooper have been deemed as the pioneers of historical novel, the platform of this genre had already been set by Sophia Lee, Maria Edgeworth, and Jane Porter. Sophia Lee produced a historical novel, The Recess, between 1783 and 1785. The novel is a form of early historical novel which was translated into French. Sophia Lee's novel, The Recess, deals with the reign of Queen Elizabeth. The novel is also known as A Tale of Other Times. The Recess presents a woman engaged in political plots, overseas voyages and warfare. Another earliest example of historical novel is Maria Edgeworth's Castle Rackrent, which was published in 1800. The novel presents the scene before 1782. The narrator of Castle Rackrent is Thady Quirke. Castle Rackrent presents the story of three generations of the Rackrents and its gradual degeneration. Maria Edgeworth's novel, Castle Rackrent, is also the first regional novel which describes the Irish culture and life. It is important to note that Sir Walter Scott was highly influenced by Maria Edgeworth. What Maria Edgeworth did for the Irish people, Walter Scott wanted to do for the Scottish. Jane Porter's work Thaddeus of Warsaw is a historical romance depicting the adventures of a Polish nobleman. He joins the army of King Stanislas against the Russian forces. The novel was published in 1803. The novel Thaddeus of Warsaw deals with the partition of Poland. Before Sir Walter Scott, Jane Porter produced a historical novel, The Scottish Chiefs, in 1810. The novel deals with the story of William Wallace and Robert the Bruce. The novel describes the Battle of Bannockburn. Jane Porter's novel, The Scottish Chiefs, can be considered as the precursor of the historical novel of Sir Walter Scott. Another novel of Maria Edgeworth, namely, The Absentee, presents the exploitative and manipulative nature of the absentee landlords of the time. The novel satirizes the exploitation of the Irish people by the rich landlords. Maria Edgeworth's novel, The Absentee, appeared in Tales of Fashionable Life in 1812. Maria Edgeworth has critically analysed the issues of Irish identity. Maria Edgeworth's novel Adelaide is also a historical novel. Sir Walter Scott can be considered as the pioneer of the historical novel. He produced many historical novels deriving inspiration from Maria Edgeworth. Through his novels, Sir Walter Scott depicted the Scottish life, culture, and history. Sir Walter Scott's famous novel Ivanhoe was published in 1819. It is the quintessence of historical novel. Ivanhoe is set in the 12th century. It is Sir Walter Scott's first historical novel which deals with the English issue. The novel presents a clash between Saxon and Norman people during the reign of Richard I. Sir Walter Scott has artistically delineated the characters of Wilfred of Ivanhoe and Rebecca, a beautiful and virtuous heroine of the novel. Sir Walter Scott has woven two plots into the fabric of Ivanhoe. The first story deals with the victory of Ivanhoe and Richard over their enemies. The main plot deals with the passion of the Templar Sir Brian de Bois Guilbert for Rebecca. In the combat, Ivanhoe kills the Templar. The novel ends on a happy note of union of Ivanhoe and Rowena. The Jewish heroine Rebecca goes back to England hiding her love for Ivanhoe. The novel Waverley of Sir Walter Scott appeared in 1814. Edward Waverley is the protagonist of the novel, who is brought up by his father and uncle. In this novel, Sir Walter Scott has presented a contrast between romance and realism. The novel also reflects political tension of the period. Edward Waverley joins the Jacobite forces. The novel is set in the 18th century. Another novel of Jane Porter, namely, The Pastor's Fireside, appeared in 1815. It deals with the story of the Stuarts. Sir Walter Scott's novel, Rob Roy, is set in the 18th century. The novel Rob Roy was published in 1817. It describes the hike in the Whig mercantile class. Sir Hildebrand is the chief of Osbaldistone Hall. Frank Osbaldistone, son of Francis Osbaldistone, is exiled to the Hall, where he is refused entry in his father's enterprise. As a result, Francis Osbaldistone resolves to give Rashleigh, his nephew, the place of his son. There is bitter rivalry between Frank and Rashleigh for their cousin Diana Vernon. Rashleigh tries to spoil the reputation of Frank's father, Francis. On hearing Rashleigh's plan, Frank goes to Scotland and seeks help of Baillie Nicole Jarvie. He is a Scottish correspondent of Francis's business firm. Baillie Nicole Jarvie is the protagonist of the novel in real sense. Rob Roy MacGregor appears in the concluding part of the novel. He kills Rashleigh. In the end, Frank and Diana get married, and Frank inherits Osbaldistone Hall. The novel Heart of Midlothian of Sir Walter Scott appeared in 1818. The novel is set in the 18th century. It presents two historical events, the riots in Edinburgh and the story of Isabel Walker, who has been sentenced to death for child murder. Isabel's sister Helen obtains pardon for her sister. George Staunton instigates people for riots in order to free his lover Effie Deans. She is accused of child murder. Effie's sister Jenny Deans goes to London in order to seek pardon for her sister. She fearlessly puts the case before Queen Caroline and gets success in obtaining pardon from the Queen. James Fenimore Cooper's famous historical novel, The Spy, appeared in 1821. It depicts the scenes of American Revolution. James Fenimore Cooper is known as American Walter Scott. The novel, Kenilworth of Sir Walter Scott, transports the readers to the Elizabethan era. The novel presents the story of Queen Elizabeth, her confidant Leicester, and the murder of Leicester's wife Amy Robsart. It arouses interest of the reader in the novel. The readers can meet the historical figures like William Shakespeare, Edmund Spenser, and Walter Raleigh. The novel was published in 1821. Sir Walter Scott's historical novel, Quentin Durward, is set in the 15th century France. It presents scenes of Louis XI's reign. The novel was published in 1823. Another historical novel of Sir Walter Scott, The Talisman, appeared in 1825. It deals with the story of Sir Kenneth, a Scottish knight. He is trapped in the machinations of Richard I of England, the Duke of Austria, the Knights Templar, and the King of France. As the story proceeds, the reader comes to know that Sir Kenneth is Prince David of Scotland, who is in disguise. Sir Walter Scott, in this novel, has presented a contrast between chivalry and wisdom and corruption. It also presents the picture of greed and machinations of Christian leaders. The character of Saladin, a Sunni Kurd and founder of the Ayyubid dynasty, adds interest in the novel. Count Robert of Paris is Sir Walter Scott's last historical novel, which appeared in 1831. Walter Scott composed this novel in ill health. The novel presents story of the First Crusade in the 11th century. Victor Hugo's major historical novel, Notre Dame de Paris, was published in 1831. The novel unfolds Hugo's concern for the Gothic and medieval architecture, which was in danger due to the building of new architecture. In this novel, Victor Hugo has made his contemporaries aware of the value of old Gothic cathedrals and churches. The novel is set in the second half of the 15th century during the reign of Louis XI. The novel is also known as The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It holds some features of Gothic novel. Edward Bulwer Lytton's historical novel The Last Days of Pompeii appeared in 1834. It deals with the fall of Roman city due to volcanic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in AD 79. The novel also depicts the richness of Greek and Egyptian culture. William Harrison Ainsworth produced some remarkable historical novels. They are classed as Lancashire novels. There is a fine blending of Gothic and supernatural in Ainsworth's novels. His most famous historical novels are The Lancashire Witches, Mervyn Clitheroe and Rookwood. William Ainsworth's novels cover 400 years' history of northern region. His novels Rookwood was published in 1834, The Lancashire Witches in 1848, and Mervyn Clitheroe appeared in 1857. William Ainsworth occupies a significant place in the arena of historical fiction, and he stands next to the side of Sir Walter Scott. In his novels, Ainsworth has presented scenes of various sites like St. Paul's, London Tower, and Windsor Castle. The novel Vanity Fair of William Makepeace Thackeray presents picture of Napoleonic Wars. It was published in 1848. The novel describes the story of Becky Sharp, Rebecca, who is an orphan child of a French opera dancer and an artist. The novel presents a contrast between Amelia Sedley's love and devotion for her family and avarice and indifference of Becky Sharp. Vanity Fair holds some features of picaresque novel. The title of the novel was taken from John Bunyan's allegorical prose work Pilgrim's Progress. It is also a serial novel, for it was published serially in the periodical Punch between 1847 and 1848. Charles Kingsley's Hypatia is a famous historical novel. It was published in numbers in Fraser's magazine in 1851. The novel deals with scenes of Alexandria of 15th century and criticizes fanaticism of monks. The novel describes a story of a philosopher, Hypatia, who was attacked and killed by a mob. The novel Hypatia appeared in book form in 1853. William Makepeace Thackeray's historical novel, The History of Henry Esmond, Esquire, deals with the story of Esmond, who is the narrator of the novel. The novel presents scenes of the reign of Queen Anne. Esmond lives with his father's cousin, Viscount Castlewood, and his wife Rachel. Lord Mohun, a villain, tries to seduce Rachel. In a duel, Castlewood is killed. When Castlewood is on the verge of death, he reveals the secret to Henry that he is the legitimate heir of the property. The novel ends on a happy note of union of Henry and Rachel. Henry Esmond's plan to restore James Edward's start to throne fails. The novel was published in 1852. Charles Kingsley's historical novel, Westward Ho! Was published in 1855. The novel deals with the story of Crimean War. The novel arouses feeling of national pride. William Makepeace Thackeray's novel The History of Henry Esmond, Esquire was followed by another historical novel, The Virginians. It deals with the story of the American Revolution. The novel was published in installments between 1857 and 1859. The novel Tale of Two Cities of Charles Dickens is a fine example of historical novel. It was published in 1859. The novel depicts life of people in Paris and London during the French Revolution. The novel is inspired by Thomas Carlyle's famous work French Revolution. Charles Reade produced his famous historical novel, The Cloister and the Hearth, in 1861. The Cloister and the Hearth is set in the 15th century Netherlands. The novel deals with the theme of passion and patience. The great philosopher Erasmus appears in this novel. All the passions of the protagonist, Gerard, and his wife, Margaret Brant, are spent, and they find solace in love of God. They also understand the worth of love. It was followed by a novel, Griffith Gaunt, with controversial theme. Charles Reade's novel Griffith Gaunt deals with a taboo topic. It was published in 1866. The novel Griffith Gaunt presents scenes of the 18th century. The novel is modelled on Wilkie Collins' novel. Gustave Flaubert, the French novelist, produced his famous historical novel Salammbô in 1862. The novel presents scenes of life in Paris between 1840 and 1851. The novel describes the love story of Frederick Moreau and tale of ancient Carthage. George Eliot's famous historical novel Romola appeared in 1863. The novel is set in the 15th century Florence. It presents the scenes of the expedition of Charles VIII, the energetic speeches of Savonarola demanding reform, and separation between the supporters of the Medici and popular party. The novel also introduces various historical figures as Machiavelli, Charles VIII, and Savonarola. Romola, the protagonist of the novel, is a daughter of a blind scholar. Tito Melema, a Greek young man, enters the life of Romola, deceives her father and betrays Romola. He is involved in the political plot of the period. Romola abhors her husband, Tito Melema, and finds solace in self-sacrifice. The novel reflects on human life. It was serialized in the Cornhill magazine between 1862 and 1863. Lev Tolstoy's famous epic historical novel, War and Peace, depicts scenes of Napoleonic wars and its impact on people's life. The novel was published in 1869. Richard Doddridge Blackmore's famous historical novel, Lorna Doone, appeared in 1869. It is set in Exmoor, Devon. John Ridd is the protagonist of the novel. The region is terrorized by bandits, the Doones. Lorna, who is in the captivity of Carver Doone, is rescued by the hero, John Ridd. It is revealed that Lorna belongs to a noble family. There are a few scenes of Monmouth's rebellion. The character of Tom Faggus is based on a historical figure. Richard Doddridge Blackmore's novel Lorna Doone ends on a happy note of marriage of John Ridd and Lorna. Thomas Hardy's only historical novel, The Trumpet Major, appeared in 1880. The novel presents scenes of Napoleonic wars, and the reader also meets historical figures like King George III. The major characters of the novel are John Loveday, the trumpet major, Anne Garland, and Bob. John Loveday, the trumpet major, dies on the battlefield in Spain. Bob and Anne unite at the end of the novel.
How is the video? I hope you like the video. I will meet you soon with a new video on an interesting topic. I have already told you that I have produced many videos on English literature, and I will continue producing all those videos for you. Our small family is reaching 1000 subscriber mark. I hope you will definitely make it complete that particular target. If you really like my videos, do like and subscribe Literature Guide so that I can produce many videos like this one for you in future also. Meet you.
Please subscribe Literature Guide.